it's gone. Brodie Kostecki is the king of the mountain. He got it pulled up. He made the He is now in 2024 the Repco Supercars Champion. And what a drive today.
G'day guys, James Pavey here from supercars.com, here with my mate Zach Dowdle. G'day mate.
G'day Paves, how are you mate?
Not too bad. Let's get right into it with our summer cool-down season reviews brought to you by City Rural Insurance Brokers. Erebus Motorsport. What a season, what a year. Storylines, headlines, race wins. They had it all, but man, where do you start?
Oh, the start of the season, it's already been spoken about at length. Very messy. The sport wasn't the same without Brodie Kostecki on the grid for the opening two rounds. If there's a silver lining to come out of it, though, and Todd Hazelwood did an outstanding job as a substitute, in my opinion, and having those miles under his belt, that only helped for his enduro cameo later on in the year, which we'll touch on soon. But that first half of the year for Erebus, they just weren't quite the same powerhouse team as we saw in 2023 that took on the fight to Red Bull and eventually beat them.
So to briefly recap, Zach, the first two rounds of the year, Brodie Kostecki, the running champion, was not there. And it was highly publicised, and a lot of people had bits to say on social media, which sometimes wasn't the greatest thing to see. But when he did come back, he was pretty good. He was in the shootout in Topor, and there were results here and there, but ultimately reliability let those guys down the first few rounds. You do raise a good point, though. Todd Hazelwood did a really, really sterling job standing in. And then Brodie got a podium in Darwin. You think, wow, okay, is he back? A little bit of speed here and there, but ultimately the results weren't quite there for these guys yet. They needed that confidence because, when you're running off fumes after what has been a pretty tough year, it's not going to be the best for the results. And then everything changed again. You get to Sandown in the Enduros, and those cars were fast. The way that Brodie and Todd were racing at the start of that race, Todd probably had flashbacks to going off at turn 6 at Sandown after that contact, but there was a clear shift down at Erebus. I think after Darwin, I think these guys, where's the speed going to come from? How can we make this speed work? There are some very, very smart people at that race team, and they've been there for a very, very long time. And it just clicked all of a sudden, didn't it? About the Enduros, those cars were fast.
I think a lot of that had to do with Brodie Kostecki getting the news out there that he is moving on to pastures new for 2025. I feel like there was definitely that sense of a massive weight lifted off his shoulders, and there's definitely that one single-minded focus from everyone at the team and Brodie of, right, water under the bridge. Let's forget about the start of the year. Let's just put everything in on winning Bathurst. And Sandown was a massive warning shot, and one that probably went a little bit missed just after they DNF'd. The car had pace at the start of the race, as you said, and Todd Hazelwood, incredibly aggressive against Jamie Whincup. Todd Hazelwood fighting the GOAT of supercars, and nearly got the upper hand, and it was, rough and tumble, puncture. That's just racing. It happens, especially in supercars. But then they get to Bathurst, and we get to Saturday, and no one saw which way they went. And same again on Sunday, even if it was Brocq just hammering away at the back of Brodie Kostecki in that last stint. And it was seesawing from anywhere between half a second to a second for that entire stint, and it was really, as much as it's cliche, it was probably some of the highest level motorsport that you could see. And Brodie stood up tall on that occasion and claimed the biggest win of his career. And that just sort of capped off the last 12 months for Erebus Motorsport to claim a championship win, or a driver's championship and a team's championship, and then a Bathurst 1000 all in the space of 12 months against someone like a 888 Race Engineering, who they beat on every occasion in a straight fight. That is seriously impressive for Erebus Motorsport, and they've proven that they're no longer the little battler punching well above their weight. They can be and are genuinely one of the heavyweights of the sport.
It almost seems absurd to say that it was an against the odds win at Bathurst for Erebus because of, on paper, great results. They were the running champions, drivers and teams, but the turmoil at the start of the year was extraordinary. But to turn up to a place like that, to race the way they did, let's not forget, Brodie Kostecki was crook. He was crook as a dog. So to be that strong in the race, both of them, Todd just did not put a foot wrong. But we did an analysis on supercars.com about Brodie's race performance in that last stint, and it was just unbelievable. Like you say, it was just It doesn't get better than that. And I know people might watch races and think, well, where are the crashes? That might be the moment. But for us purists, we're the guys that write the stories and see what's going on behind the scenes, all that sort of thing. That was a very, very high level of athleticism from Brodie Kostecki. And wow, I mean, he's a Bathurst winner. He goes to a new team as a Bathurst winner. But you go to the Gold Coast 2 weeks later, was Bathurst a fluke? Absolutely not. Brodie smashed them again. It was almost more controlled because that place is really hard on the cars. It's hard on the drivers as well. Put it to good use again. And I mean, closed out the year with Adelaide as well. A tough race there too. But Brodie proved to a lot of people, I have not lost this. I am strong. I am good at this. I'm good at what I do. And if I'm at a new team and perform, it'll just prove a lot of people wrong.
I mean, he's not just good at what he does. He's one of the best at what he does, Brodie Kostecki. And he really has that really hard racer's edge that arguably is the hardest of anyone in the field. It really is. No punches pulled, no give or take. It's Brodie's way or the highway. And I think we really saw that at Bathurst in that final stint. It was go out there and you have to do a top 10 shootout lap for every lap to the checkered flag. And he did that for, 30 laps back to back to back, just shootout laps, no mistakes at all. Admittedly, it was the same for Brocq as well. It was really outstanding motor racing, and I mean, it really was perhaps the biggest indication yet that Brodie Kostecki, he still has got it, and Erebus Motorsport too. They also still have it because as much as the driver gets all the accolades and all the headlines, the team have to give him a car to do that job, and Erebus Motorsport prepared an absolutely faultless Chico Roll Camaro for both Brodie and Todd Hazelwood, who also was outstanding in Bathurst.
Before we get into too much detail, Zach, let's get a message from our partners. Our season reviews are proudly sponsored by City Rural Insurance Brokers. City Rural, a subsidiary of the Cowden Group of companies, has over 50 years' experience supporting their clients. They offer a range of specialist insurance from heavy industry to food trucks. They are your insurance pit crew. Head to cityrural.au. Fascinating footnote on 2024 for Erebus Motorsport is they're going to be a customer chassis supplier. They're supplying at least 2 new chassis for Dick Johnson Racing. Ironically, that's where Brodie's going as well. So this team knows they can win races and championships. They want to be an engineering powerhouse as well. That's a massive shot in the arm for those guys, to stand on their 2 feet. We can win races. We know how to do this thing as well. But to be able to go to other teams and say, hey, look, we're very good at this. Particular shout out to James White, the fabricator. He has built some Bathurst winners, some championship winners. So these guys are really, really good. But we can't talk about Brodie without talking about Jack Le Brocq as well. I mean, to move teams after a really strong season with MSR last year, he got that pole in Townsville and you think, oh, wow, he could break through before Brodie does. But one of the best drives of the year that no one's really spoken about was Jack Le Brocq and Jaden Ojeda at the Sandown 500. I mean, that was awesome to start from the back and be running fourth until the final laps. And there was contact, unfortunately, with Matt Payne at turn 4. That incident masked how good that performance really was. So they get to Bathurst and Jack Le Brocq is running in the top 4 as well. And unfortunately, they were caught out by a late safety car, the only safety car of the race, mind you, and they finished towards the back end of the top 10. So it was a season for Jack Le Brocq to feel a bit unlucky as well. I mean, you look at the results, the race head-to-head, he led Brodie 12-9, discounting the first 2 rounds as well with Todd Hazelwood as well. Qualifying is where Brodie makes his money. He led 15 and Le Brocq got 7. So Teams Championship performance, 6th overall for these guys. I guess you look at the fluctuation of their season, you're like, oh, wow, okay. 6th, pretty disappointing because you started the season as reigning champs, but I don't think they'll look at the championship order. I think they'll look at what they managed to achieve in the races towards the end of the year. And, if you can turn up the next year and say, hey, we've got a Bathurst winning, happy days.
Oh, man, it's the age-old saying, isn't it? Is if you have a bad season, all you need is a Bathurst 1000 win and that turns around. And I think Erebus was really the epitome of that this year. There was a time where it looks like they were going to be buried in the Teams Championship far down towards the areas of, say, 10th position in the Teams Championship, which that would have been a really, really tough result for them to back up a Teams Championship from 2023. But to have that strong form at the back end of the year, and particularly for Brodie Kostecki, as much as it's bittersweet that it was Brodie Kostecki and he now moves on, it's still a very promising trend heading towards 2025. And we haven't got a little bit of a sneak preview of 2025 with Cooper Murray jumping in to replace Jack Le Brocq at the Adelaide 500.
Yeah, before we get to Cooper, congratulations, Jack and Mackenzie. They welcomed their first child, so that was awesome news. It was pretty crazy to be on the ground for that unfolding. Cooper's there on Friday morning, getting in the car, getting in the overalls, but You followed his trajectory in the Dunlop series, Cooper Murray. He's really, really fast. If you're racing with Craig Lowndes at 888 in a wild card, it's a bit of a springboard to maybe get a main game drive. Cooper had been signed by Erebus before those two big races, but when those two big races came around, he was really, really fast. 5th at Sandown, running comfortably in the top 10 at Bathurst, and then those two races in Adelaide as well. He was racing with the big guys. So what do you think Cooper can achieve next year? Is it remiss to say he can't win a race? Do you reckon he can win a race? Are there poles? He loves the Gen 3 cars, so I think he's going to be one to watch.
He certainly can win a race, but we've seen it's very hard for rookies to break into this championship, particularly now when the margins are so tight. You only have to be on the wrong side of a 10th, and you could be 10 places back from where you potentially could be. It really is that close. So, if Erebus produce a car like they did for the back end of this season, Cooper's got the raw speed to do it. Whether he can string, the 888 thing has also proven that he can now string together the consistency in race performances, and to have the tutelage of Craig Lowndes as well to guide you through a race weekend, because there is so much more outside of driving a car than there is in the Dunlop series. So I think that's going to be a real big help for Cooper as well. Jack LeBrock's going to be a good teammate for him as well. Jack's really experienced now. I think a few people don't quite realise how experienced Jack LeBrock is, but and Jack's a really good guy as well. So you don't imagine that Jack will be keeping any secrets from Cooper at all. He'll want Cooper to flourish as well. And to have two flourishing drivers, I think that's what Erebus really want. And Erebus have proven time and time again that they have such a belief in young talent, and Cooper really is one of the brightest young talents on the supercar scene at the moment.
A really cool story to touch on as well with Cooper coming into the team is Brodie's had a big role to play in that. There were photos at the ride day of those two talking together, being able to be trackside in Adelaide and then get in the car. Brodie's at the same race. They're working together, and Brodie's giving him an opportunity to, hey, look, I'm going to be your rival next year at a different team in a different car, but we're part of the Erebus family right now. I want you to learn as much as you possibly can, because it's important to that team that Brodie leaves, A, them in good hands, and B, gives an opportunity for a young guy to have some confidence, because Brodie was there one day, when he was 22 years old, going on 23, 24, going into Erebus full time. He was taking over from guys like Anton and Dave Reynolds, who had achieved already a fair bit by that stage, and now Brodie's a Supercars champion, a Bathurst winner. I did love one of the press conferences towards the end of the year this year. Brodie's like, I did Bathurst and Championship in 4 years. Cooper's got to do it in 3. So whether Cooper can do that, Cooper will know that. One of my other favourite things about Cooper is how strong he is. He's very, very confident in what he wants to achieve. He knows how he can do it. I truly think he can win a race next year. Where that is and how that is, who knows? But it is important that Erebus qualifies well for him to be there. I think it's the same story for Brocq as well. That pole at Townsville, somewhat of an outlier because his average qualifying result was 9th. So for those guys to win races, they've got to qualify well. Obviously, it goes without saying, but I think Cooper's going to be one of the drivers to watch next year for sure.
And I don't think we ever saw the best of Cooper in Super 2, which is saying a lot because he was still very, very good in Super 2. I think there's definitely still a lot of untapped potential there, and Erebus always seem to get the best out of these young talents, and especially the Barry Ryan way always seems to extract something out of these young drivers, and that's going to be extremely beneficial for Cooper. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see Cooper Murray making a finals appearance next year, to be honest.
Well, it's a fascinating storyline for next year. You'll hear about other teams in pit lane as we continue our Supercars Summer Cooldown series brought to you by City Rural Insurance Brokers.